community. So don't hesitate. There's plenty of space for you and Kat in Qualified Tutor. Michael Gibben.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Welcome, welcome. Good morning, I should say.
Yes, good afternoon, Julia. How are you doing?
Well, I'm exhausted, but not as tired, not as tired as my friend. Where is she, Nicole? Not as tired as my friend Nicole. She's pulling an all-nighter.
Oh, Nicole.
Good. So catch us on the recording for this one, okay? Bye, love. See you tomorrow.
Yes.
In you, Michael.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited to connect with everybody.
For a little bit of context, Michael and I have been connecting through the Love Tutoring Festival for years now.
Since the first one?
Since the first one. And we created the Business of Tutoring Hub together, the mastermind.
Yes, we did.
And watching how you've been developing your ebooks and your programs to support tutors in launching and scaling has been so exciting. The summit that you created, the podcast that you've created are such a credit to your passion and your commitment to support tutors. I know you have a massive following in the States, including our lovely friend Cheryl. And so all credit to you because you're making change in this world. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Well, thank you, Julia.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here today. And again, if anybody has any questions as we go through today's topic or want to share anything, please feel free to post in the chat or raise your hand. And it'd be great to connect and talk with all of you about today's topic, which is going to be all about how to build successful tutoring organizations. So this topic is really going to be going into the depths of hiring and training, but more importantly, how to nurture the relationships with your tutoring team to have them stay with you long term. Because one of those issues that comes up a lot is that turnover of tutors, and that can happen quite a bit. And it's like, okay, well, how can we pivot from that? So I'd love to get a little bit about your name and where you're coming from today. And and just if you want to post in chat a little bit about where you are in your scaling journey with tutors, whether you're something you're thinking about doing or you've started to hire somebody or you've already scaled up to a team, it'd be great to see. So today we're going to go over together the key elements for hiring your first tutor, training your tutor to become a tutoring superstar, building your successful tutoring team, and finally leading your thriving tutoring team. And before we go into that first part, I do want to share a little bit about my own journey with doing that. So I started my tutoring company, I Am Success Tutoring, in 2011. And by early 2012, I was like, oh, I'm ready to hire tutors. This is great. I've got students. I'm ready to build up some tutors. I'll have some passive income and, it'll be great. And it was the wrong mindset because I was hiring tutors, but it was very quick. It was very, just bringing people on to fill voids, to fill spots to get for the students that were coming in. And I was missing that critical element of this is not passive income. This is it's a commitment to build your team and your brand and taking it to that next level. And it's so critical to have a lot of those different steps in place, but most important of all, recognizing that this is about the relationships and nurturing those, because that will take you so far with hiring your team and having an amazing team that stay with you and will advocate for you and will really be there for you and your clients, and seeing your brand just continue to take off and excel. And so Claire, perfect. Thank you for sharing that. So we're going to start with hiring your first tutor. So this step here, it does vary from different states and provinces and countries. There's different smaller nuances with it, but the general piece is check your budget, and the rates that you have is really important when you're ready to hire. You want to check, do you have it in your budget? Also check your client trajectory, because there's always been that bit of a chicken and the egg situation of, okay, do I hire tutors and wait for students to show up? Do I get a surplus of students and then I don't have tutors, so I have to take them, and then I'm overbooked and overwhelmed? What do I do? So a strategy that can really work wonders is checking your trajectory that you've had over the last, say, 3-4 months, and look at where you're going to be going. So say you're getting 2 or 3 new students consistently every month. It's fair to say you'll probably keep that consistency going. And from there, you can say, okay, how many tutors do I need to fill this particular need for my company? And it's okay to Also, it's okay to hire tutors and take your time to bring students to them. Not too long. You don't want to take months and months and months, but if it takes a couple extra weeks to bring a student to a tutor, that's a great extra couple weeks to build a relationship and a meaningful connection. But it's important to check your budget, make sure you have it in your budget to hire, and what are your rates. And I find a good rule of thumb is 40 to 50% of what you charge a family goes to your new tutor. And starting around 40% is great, and then you can incrementally raise it up to 50% as the tutor continues to continues on with you in your organization, has been with you for a long while. It's a nice additional incentive and bonus to provide your tutor with, but it's something that they work towards. And so if you're wondering, well, I can't really, 50% of my rate is like only $20, think about, okay, well, am I charging enough? So think of like what's going to be the fair wage for the tutor and what's a fair charge to charge the families. And then it's creating that must-see hiring ad. Be very specific about who you're hiring. I've seen some wonderful ads out there where they're very specific. And I know I used to do this myself. When I started, I did not do this. When I started, I was very generalist. I was like, oh, hiring a tutor for all subjects in Toronto for elementary school. That's way too vague. And you're going to get a million applications and you don't want to be sifting through those all day. So create something very specific, with not just the grade and the subject you're looking for, but also giving a little bit about your company's culture, and what kind of personality you're looking for. Also set up different pieces where, you must be certified to be to tutor, or do you have a background check, or just things kind of just like different control questions before they come in and even submit their resume. They have to fill those things out. Indeed is a wonderful website for that. It has a lot of those different pieces in place so that you can really sieve out the ideal candidates for the interview. So, but have something really short, must-see hiring ad, and really something that's going to draw the attention of your ideal tutor candidates is really, really important. And then shortlist from there and set up your meetings. And when you're setting up a meeting, it's totally okay to say, hey, can we have a telephone call or a Zoom meeting for 10 minutes just to get to know the tutor, because they might have something great on paper that doesn't translate very well in person or online if they're going to be an online tutor. Set up a mini meeting so it doesn't waste their time if they're the wrong fit and doesn't waste your time if they're not the right fit. But set up those meetings and go from there. And now we go to how we select your ideal tutor. And this part is where you complete your interview with key questions. So for key questions, when I coach other tutors, we go into a fully detailed interview questionnaire. But a couple of sample questions I'd love to share with all of you today that are really important, great litmus questions for hiring tutors. The first one I used for years with every single hire. I always used it, and it never failed me. Was, have you ever had a student who was unmotivated, and how did you turn that around? So the question again is, have you ever had a student who was unmotivated, and how did you turn that around? Because that is a situational question. You're going to have students who are unmotivated. Almost all of us, I'm sure, have had that before. And if a tutor responds by saying, oh, I've never had an unmotivated student. My students are always wonderful and well-behaved and engaged. They're either extremely lucky or they're maybe just very early on in their tutoring career. And it's just something to take note of when you're hiring, because students are going to have off days. We are all human. We all have bad days, off days. And so you really want to get to gauge, how are they going to motivate a student? How are they going to turn that around? Because that's going to be a common thread and common problem with working sometimes with clients. So you want to see what kind of answer they give. They might say, well, I would ask the student how they're doing. I would see, how can we work this out, and just kind of dig deep and figure out how what's going on and how we can maybe turn that lesson around and work on that student's terms for that day to help have a successful lesson by just listening and being there. That's a stronger answer. You might have someone say, well, I remember I had a candidate say, well, I would immediately go to the parents and say the student's misbehaving, and I would stop the lesson. Ooh. I don't know, that for me, I was like, no, I can't hire that person. That's for me, for my company's culture, that's not an appropriate answer. because you want to be nurturing bonds with students. And again, they're going to have good days and bad days. So that was a good litmus question. The other one I found very helpful was, why do you want to work for our company? So that was a key question. Again, never failed me. I wanted to hear what the response was, because that question will help you to see how motivated are these, are these tutors to work for you? How engaged are they? And how serious are they taking this interview process? So for example, I had a number of candidates that would say, oh, you know what, Michael, to be honest, I've applied to so many places. I don't know. And that, that gives room for pause. Okay, well, okay, you've applied for a lot of places. That's totally fine, but you don't know. So how serious are you about the position? It's okay if they say, let me think about it for a moment, and then they give their answer. They want to think and process it. That's fine. But if they say, well, I don't know, I've applied to lots of places, that might show a lack of interest. Or if they say, I don't know, I just don't know. Again, that's something to question. Another one that is a bit of a red flag answer, I mean, maybe it's honest for the tutor, but it's maybe not what you necessarily want to hear, is, well, I need a bit of side cash. Okay, but that's not digging deep. Or they might say, oh, I love everything that your company gives. It's such an awesome company. I just love this company. That's a great, booster answer, but why? Why do you want to work there? So it's important that these people are mentioning, and it's great if they mention, I love this philosophy in your company, and it really matches and aligns with what I believe. I want to make a difference in a student's life, and I want to really help them to grow. I want to help them motivate, help them believe in themselves. And I think this is a great opportunity to have a synergy so we can do this. That I got that answer from a tutor, and I hired them. That was a great hiring answer. It was great because they're thinking about the students, they're thinking about the organization, they're thinking about value alignment and all these key pieces that are going to lead to a successful connection. Something else, 60-second Google check is great. Check their references. Criminal background check, again, that one depends on, check what the process is depending on your specific jurisdiction. But I did, criminal background check is an absolute must. Double check that, make sure you have a copy. My rule of thumb was it cannot be older than 6 months. I mean, really, technically, the minute they leave a police station after doing a record check, it's officially old. But having that background check is absolutely essential, because you need that for your peace of mind, due diligence, and really, I mean, these people are going in and working with minors. You want to make sure that, and they're working in people's homes, potentially on Zoom, even, doesn't matter. You want to cover that base. And the last one depends, again, and I'll check that question in just a moment, is checking additional IDs and begin training of your tutors. Now, that checking additional IDs will vary depending on again, your jurisdiction and what the rules are. For myself, I was not allowed to check SIN numbers or anything like that, but I was allowed to get a copy of a driver's license or a copy of a university degree or something as proof of who this person is. And for training, that's the next step. So then you start training tutors, which we're going to go over in a moment. So does anybody have any questions so far on hiring your first tutor? And Hannah, I love personality, so important. And Helen, update service is a great tool. Oh, amazing. Yes, for the DBS. Absolutely. Thank you, Helen, for sharing that. Do you have a link for that potentially?
You can sign up for it once you've done your DBS within 30 days. So
amazing.
once you've done your DBS check, and I think you have got options for that. So email Hannah, because Hannah's awesome.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you, Hannah. And Elizabeth, welcome. All right, so training your super tutor. So first thing is signing the tutoring agreement. And again, it's going to vary whether it's an employee, independent contractor, but again, that's all depending on your jurisdiction. But signing your tutoring agreement is important to make sure that both you and your awesome tutor are on the same page, because you want to make sure that everybody's on the same page about what's required, what the steps are, and having all those pieces in place so that your tutor doesn't walk around unaware and you don't walk around uncertain and not knowing what's going to be happening. So that's important to have in place. And creating and reviewing a training protocol with your new tutor. And again, this is something that I work on with my clients. now, but something that I was putting together in my training protocol was just really a lot of stuff related to cancellations, safeguarding policies, a lot, or supervision policies, it's called in North America, just having those pieces in place, having things related to professional conduct, behavior, because again, like it's very important that those things, people are made aware of those things. So for example, for myself, like I would have a supervision policy in place. So a tutor doesn't show up to a student's home. The student is 7 years old and no parent or guardian's around, and the tutor goes in and tutors the lesson. That can get you into potentially some murky waters. So I just make sure that we had a protocol in place for what happens in the case of a parent or guardian's absent. Cancellation policies, that tends to be, again, a bit of a sticky issue where a family cancels last minute. Do you pay the tutor? Do you not pay the tutor? Is it to the tutor's discretion? So just thinking of those different things as you bring on new tutors and having that training protocol in place is very important, and it can really make an appreciable difference. And this last part is probably one of the most important pieces, and it took me several years into hiring tutors to finally get to this point, was completing a mock session, because I remember so vividly hiring tutors, training tutors, going through the process, references checkout, background check is great. We do the email introduction the night before, the tutor's excited to work with the student, and then the day of, the tutor leaves because they have another commitment, or the tutor no-shows, or the tutor cancels last minute and needs to reschedule. And these things happen, and it can be a very frustrating situation for the family to be just kind of have the rug dropped out from under them. Very stressful for you, because now you're in a lurch. Do you take the student on yourself? Do you hire someone? You don't want to just rush hire somebody. You want to be a tortoise, not a hare, when you're hiring. So what do you do there? So the mock session came about a few years into my business, where I realized, I should probably do this to make sure the tutor is really committed. And I get that sometimes cancellations are going to happen last minute, and then they can work on a rescheduling. Occasionally it's going to happen, life happens, if that's okay. But you want to make sure your tutor is really showing that they're ready to go. So a mock session, what I would do is I would email one of my personal families that I was tutoring and say, hey, I'm bringing a brand new tutor on board. I would love if they could work with so-and-so and myself for about 15 to 20 minutes today. It'd be great, or later this week, is that okay if they come and they join us? Family 99% of the time says, yeah, of course, no problem. We would love to have them there. And you can say it as, how cool, so-and-so is going to have 2 tutors this lesson. That's so exciting. That's so awesome. And then the mock session happens, and it's a chance for you to see how is the tutor with your student. It's a chance to kind of see their personality, and they might be putting on a little bit more of something because they're with you in the room or on Zoom, but it's like, but not all the time. Most of the time they're giving their authentic self, and they're going to deliver what they're going to deliver. And if everything works out well, it's like, wow, that tutor showed up for the mock session. They delivered. That gives you peace of mind when you're bringing them in to work with your new family, because they really showed they are invested and they care, and they're hitting all the boxes. If the tutor no shows, cancels last minute, quits at the last 11th hour, no harm, no foul. You go to your current family that you work with, say, you know what, unfortunately, the tutor who was supposed to join us is not available, but don't worry, I'm still here. We're going to have an awesome session. It's going to be great. Perfect. And for the family that's waiting for that new tutor, well, you avoided the very awkward call of a quit or a no-show or any of those things. You just talk to the family and say, you know what, there's been a slight change in plans and change in circumstances. If you're okay with it, if we could kindly ask for just another week, we want to make sure we bring the best possible tutor in for your child. And we'd love to provide you with some resources and some support in the transition leading up to the start, if that works for you. And just, again, keeping an open dialogue with the family and taking that extra time to find a tutor. But again, take your time with that. And worst case scenario, the family might leave, if worst case scenario, but at least it's not an awkward, upsetting exit. It's more of a, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But most of the time, it gives you time to find that amazing rock star tutor and bring someone in, and the family's grateful, and crisis averted. So those are really, really critical. So anybody have any questions so far about the mock sessions, or about the training, or the tutoring agreement? Let's see. Well, thanks, Julia. And Dee, no, thank you so much. It was great great having you here today. Okay, the next step is building your successful tutoring team. And this part is really, this was an area that took me honestly, quite a bit of time to develop, because when I started, I was very much in the mode of, I know I do a great job. My tutors will do a great job. I'll make sure they're carbon copies of me, and we can have a wonderful organization. Everybody's just like me. It'll run smooth. And I would be really anxious. I would be full of anxiety if it wasn't following to the letter how I taught and how I did things. That is the quickest way to alienate your tutors and have them walk. So I learned that. I mean, tutors left because I was overbearing, I was annoying, and I was just not somebody that you want to work with, because I was so about making sure it was just right that I was actually turning people off. So the biggest piece of advice is, and don't make everyone's their own unique person. They're going to bring their own spice to the table. Let them bring their spices and have a great time, because they're going to bring stuff to the table that you may not have ever thought of. And how amazing and empowering is that? And so the biggest advice is two-way communication. The tutors, that's the biggest shift I found. Once it was like, let's have an open dialogue, let's share, let's talk. It created an opportunity for tutors to share and they felt it was a safe space, and vice versa. I could share with them. That was a wonderful opportunity, because then tutors are sharing with you. They feel seen, they feel heard, they feel valid and valued. And that makes a huge difference in terms of turnover and versus tutors staying long-term. Active listening and proactive guidance. So, I know, for example, I had a tutor, this was about year 4, year 5 into I Am Success Tutoring, and the tutor called me in tears and said she had to leave because she was moving, and she was very upset about it and very apologetic. And we just talked, and what I could have said was, well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I mean, I guess all the best, and kind of just left it and let it sit there in the end. But it was like, well, no, if I do that, then it's going to end things on a negative note, and it's closing off any opportunities. So I was like, well, no, put that aside. I was like, well, I'm really sorry. I said, let's take a moment, let's recenter, and let's talk about it. If whatever you'd like to share with me, please share. And let's figure out a solution, because you are an amazing tutor who's made an appreciable difference in this student's life. What can we do together to make sure this student stays with us and stays with you, because you are wonderful. And I just list everything, and and again, not trying to pry, because you don't want to be nosy. And usually tutors or people who feel safe and trust and comfortable will open up as much as they feel about opening up. That's wonderful. And then after that, we worked out that she would continue online with the student. And I said, okay, let's continue online. That's a brilliant solution. I said, well, let's talk to the family, see what their thoughts are. And we talked to the family, and the family agreed to doing online, and the tutor stayed. And it was a great solution, a seemingly simple solution, but it could have been so quick to be like, oh, well, fine, you're leaving, bye. Or it could have been, well, all right, well, thanks for a great couple years. But it was like, no, let's listen and figure this out together and come together towards a common best solution. Rewarding successful tutors. And a mistake I made early on with this is rewarding by giving financial incentive. And that is a part of it. Like, you can give a financial incentive, but that's not fully listening to your tutors. That's not listening to what they want. They're doing an amazing job. They're exceeding the expectations. Having that sit down with them, I would have them at my office, or we would talk on the phone or on Zoom. And I would ask them, where do you see yourself in this company in 6 months? You're doing amazing things. What do you see for yourself? And I had a couple wonderful tutors that I worked with that promoted them up to lead mentor tutor. And they did some really cool, we did some different charity activities and different assessment activities. And they brought ideas to the table for ways we could assess students in different ways. How amazing. So that's rewarding successful tutors by giving them additional responsibilities, talking about what they would like to do in the organization to keep the organization continue to thrive, giving them that voice. And yes, of course, you can add the financial incentive, but don't just start with the financial incentive, and don't just end with the financial incentive, because people, you can be as nice as you are to them. You can give money, money, money. If people don't feel seen and heard and don't see the room for growth, where's the incentive to stay? So it's really reward them and celebrate your tutors. Like, take them out for a nice dinner a couple times a year, celebrate with a nice thank you card, like give your tutors back. It's amazing. And tutors everybody loves to feel that little boost of positivity, and it's nice to do. And it really helps tutors feel good about themselves as well as yourself and as well as the families. And reflect on struggling tutors. And this was something that I know for myself, it took me a little bit of time to really build those skills in there. And we're all lifelong learners, still learning, of course, is reflect on struggling tutors. If a tutor is struggling with cancellations, okay, well, let's have a talk. Let's figure out, why are these cancellations happening? How are you feeling about this position? Is this position the right position for you? What can we do to make it work? Or reflecting on a struggling tutor that maybe is really struggling with motivating a certain student. Well, let's talk about it. It's quick to be like, well, they should know how to motivate students, or they should know to be on time. Yes, it's quick to make that jump, that jump into that, but take the time to reflect on those struggling tutors, because you might be able to turn it around. If they are given a voice on what they're struggling with, and they feel comfortable having a dialogue with you, most of the time they will understand, and they will see, and you'll see, and you'll understand. And it creates more of a relationship, and they're going to feel like, wow, I was heard today, versus, oh, I'm getting reprimanded for being late a couple times. This person, he doesn't think I can do the job very well because he's asking me about why I'm not motivating the student. So it's just little things like that. And also knowing when to endure and knowing when to let go is such a critical step in tutoring. I've said it before, growing up, I used to get a kick out of any of the cartoon shows when I was a kid, when I would hear, I don't know, the Jetsons, it's like, you're fired, or the Simpsons, I would hear Mr. Burns, you're fired. I used to think, oh, how fun is that? You get to fire people. It's not, as I'm sure some of you know, it's not fun. It is such a hard process to let someone go. It is such, because you're emotionally invested in your tutors, and you grow to care about them, whether they've been with you for a few weeks or a few years. Usually letting go happens early on in the process. But it's about really giving your tutors a chance to turn it around, unless it's something, knock wood, we never had anything really serious with I Am Success Tutoring, but if it's an issue like consistent cancellations more than a few times, or being late a few times and not pivoting that behavior, or developing a bit of a negative attitude towards the tutoring, like whatever it might be, but have a dialogue, like negative attitude in terms of not wanting to show up for classes and not bringing resources and giving kind of a attitude when you talk to them. Those could be signs that maybe they're not happy, they're not satisfied, and just know when to let it go. Because if you know when to let it go, your stress drops, the tutor will in the long term potentially feel better for it, and the families you have an opportunity to turn that around with the family as well. So an example, I had a family that I hired a tutor, and they no-showed for the very first lesson. And I spoke with the tutor about it, and the tutor was super apologetic, said they didn't have their phone on them, whatever the reason was. I said, okay, well, this is very important. You're making a commitment to work with us and this family. You need to be showing up on time here on out, and we can turn this around. We can pivot this. And he said, yep, absolutely. Showed up on time the second session, showed up on time the third session, and then no-showed again for the fourth session. And that's where I had to let them go, because I'm like, well, that's too, and I put in writing, what was going to happen if there was another no-show. And I got a lot of, oh, please keep me. And I was like, and stand firm. I just said, sorry, we can't, because this is something we talked about. We need to make sure the family's at their best. And I want to make sure you're satisfied, because 2 no-shows and 4 lessons, I don't know if you're happy with this, or this is not maybe the right fit for you at this time. And let them go, and connected with the family right away, and had a great dialogue with the family about what are we going to do about what we were going to do to help turn it around. But first I wanted to know how they were feeling. It might be a silly question because they weren't happy, obviously, but just listening to them and getting for what they were feeling, so that I could come up with them with the best possible solution, so that their children could still have a great tutor, still excel, and still, be part of our family. And so that was really what it was about. And so it's okay, and it's not a sign of weakness to know when to let go. It's a sign of strength, and it really can help your organization grow, because you want to foster the connections with your strong tutors, your tutors that are really, growing to become excellent tutors. And that's where you want to focus all your energy on, because you want to build an amazing team that's going to be with you and grow in the months and years to come. So what are some other ways to build a successful team? If you want to post them in the chat here, what are some other ways we can build? Cheryl, I love that. Yeah, everyone encourage using leadership skills or financial rewards. Thank you. And Julia, absolutely. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you got to know when to cut. Yeah, it's nice to be nice, but yeah, you can't let an employee ruin the business. Absolutely. And staying committed to values and vision.
I'm really curious about the relationship with the tutors in terms of what the tutor's background is, and whether it's it strikes me that it's quite a hierarchical structure that you have here. And I think it's interesting that some tutor businesses are much more non-hierarchical, so they're like a collective of teachers. And then some are particularly hierarchical, especially if they're undergrads, the tutors, near peer tutoring. There seems to be a specific model here of type of tutor and type of relationship.
Well, I would say yes and no. Like, it's not necessarily hierarchical. It's not a hierarchy. It's more of there is a collective voice with people, and we all connect and stay connected. But we do reward there was rewarding tutors, letting them become lead mentor tutors if that was where they were going, and having that connection with the tutors. But it wasn't necessarily a boss subordinate relationship. There was a collective collaboration going on.
Yeah. I think it's just about what your profile of tutor is and what they're looking for.
Yeah, like in terms of who I hired, or
yeah.
So for myself, it was critical with my own vision of the company. I wanted to make sure that the person I hired had a motivating mindset, positive personality, was able to adapt. Adaptability was critical. Was somebody who was looking to grow and as an educator, as a learner, and had many different strategies to help students succeed. And was an open communicator was really important too.
So those are really much more about personality traits than they are about where they are in their life journey.
Yeah, because I had some tutors, like I remember one day I had an interview, two candidates for a position. One of them was a PhD in education that had multiple years of tutoring experience, and one was actually in the faculty of education and had been tutoring for a few years. And I went with the latter because they had the personality that I thought would be an ideal fit for the clients we had. Versus the other individual was wonderful and sure a great educator in their own right, but just didn't have that that personality. They were the one who said, I would tell the parent right away if the student was not motivated. So very, very nice. No, again, nice person, but just not what would be the right for the vision. So but again, that was for I Am Success Tutoring. That was for my particular group of families. It varies. Every organization is going to have its own vision, its own mission, its own what they believe is the best for their families and for their brand.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. And Mira, I love what digital staffing space. Absolutely. End of your questionnaire for feedback. Oh, love. Celebrations, positive culture. That's great. And actually, Mira, you nailed it on the head about having end of the year. I know for myself, I did it every June and every January. I would ask tutors for a survey of how things were going, kept it anonymous. If they didn't want to put their name, they didn't have to, because they might not feel comfortable doing that, and that's that's okay. But just how just getting that what can I do as what can we do? What can I Have Success Tutoring do? What can I do as as the person running the company? What can we do to make your experience optimal? What can we do to make it better? How are you feeling about the company right now? How are you feeling about your students? And just getting that honest feedback, because that'll help you to grow. And it's always great to get that little jolt of constructive criticism is great, because that's going to help you to evolve and grow your practice. So thank you, Mira. That's fantastic. Excellent point. Last one, leading your thriving tutoring team. So again, two-way communication support we went over. Lead by example is great. Whatever I know for myself, whatever I was expecting of any tutor, I made sure I did the same or a little bit more, because you don't want to be saying do this, do that, and then you're just not doing that. So make sure that you're keeping consistent with that and how you're doing things. Show authenticity, with your tutors. Show that openness with them about what the business is all about. And really the type of students you want to work with, the families you want to work with, the connections you want to build, and why they're part of your organization as well. That's important to really share that with them and really celebrate that with them. Demonstrate vulnerability. If you make a mistake as a tutor, like when you have a team of tutors and you're the leader and you make a mistake, own it, apologize. That's great. Never ever feel that you can't, say, hey, my bad, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Believe me, I probably sent multiple I'm sorry or my apology emails over the years for little things that I flubbed, and it happens. We're all human. So it's great to show that. And as well, whenever we would have sit-ins, a couple times a year, and if a tutor wants to talk about a student that's difficult, I might share a student that I had difficult as well, or just, because you don't want to walk around saying, well, I know all about how to help students, because we are all lifelong learners and educators. So it's great, and it's a great way to connect with your team and continue to build and foster that relationship by, again, saying like, yeah, I have a difficult student, or asking your tutors, hey, I have a student that's a little bit tricky. What would you do in this situation? It helps to really break down any of those barriers, and really, again, you're making more of a collaborative versus, manager and tutors structure. And the last one, which is kind of a circle back to what I talked about earlier, support the independence of your tutors. Many of them are wonderful educators who came from the education system, have a degree of autonomy. You do not want to be squishing autonomy. Support independence, support your tutors in that area, and avoid micromanaging, because would you like to be micromanaged? So that's really the big thing there. And again, if anybody wants to post other ways of what are ways to lead a successful tutoring team. And yeah, Cheryl, love that. Elizabeth, yes, interactive feedback systems, great. Tutorbird, I know, has one, and I know that Trello has one. Awesome. So does anybody have any, and I wanted to share with everybody this too. This was for our company. This was I Have Success Tutors was a company for 8 years, and this was around 2017. We had just on Indeed. Indeed's a great site because it allows you to post reviews, and it allows your tutors to post things anonymously and share reviews and share stars on how things are going. And it's a great opportunity for you to, for people who are prospectively going to be reviewing you to see what you're all about. So Indeed has the opportunity for your former or current team to leave reviews, and those actually help with when people are looking you up in the search. It actually is a very helpful tool. And I think Glassdoor, and there's a few others that do that as well. So I want to thank everybody so very much for today. So it was wonderful to talk with all of you and to connect with all of you. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. I have a special offer I'm going to put in chat right now. I'd love to connect with all of you one-on-one if you'd like, for a free discovery session on hiring and training your winning tutoring team. And during the session, we'll go over the #1 challenge you face in hiring and training amazing tutors, the #1 solution to overcome your challenge so you can begin to hire and train tutors with ease, and the next steps toward hiring and training your dream tutors. So I'm going to post the link for that. This is something I'd love to connect with all of you and have that one-on-one and get to know you and what you're working on in terms of building and developing your team of tutors. So the link is right there for you there in Calendly, and it'd be great to again learn where you are in your journey and where you want to go, and just have a wonderful chat about building and training and hiring and keeping a long-term tutoring team going. So again, thank you so much, everybody. Does anybody have any other questions before we wrap up today? Okay, well, I want to thank everybody so much for coming. And as always, make it a great day, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Michael. We have a few minutes for everyone to have a comfort break if you wish to. Michael, I'm going to keep you here in case anyone is feeling like they want
Sure
to chat
thing.
instead of bring their questions live and to the forefront. Are you okay with that for another
Of course,
10 minutes?
absolutely.
Everyone can.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got your coffee. Is it coffee or tea or
It's tea. Yeah, green tea.
green tea?
Mm-hmm.
Julia keeps telling me I need to get on herbal drinks. I just can't take myself to it.
Oh.
So in terms of expanding your tutoring business, what kind of made you do that first step?
For first step, it was I was hitting a ceiling with the number of students that I could take, and I wasn't at the time interested in the group tutoring model. So it was one-on-one, and I was like, okay, well, I've hit my own ceiling, and I was like, I need to bring a tutor on. But I think, yeah, that was my incentive. But my mistake was, again, kind of like what I talked about earlier. I was very much in the mindset of how to grow my business for a passive income purpose instead of how can we grow an amazing team that's going to help this company grow long term. So, but yeah, that was my initial turn. So it was about 6 months into the business. I was like, okay, it's time to bring someone on, because I was like, I don't have any more room in my calendar for students.
And that's a nice space to be in rather than kind of increasing prices and locking yourself out, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But as well, like with prices, it's really with that, it's always okay to charge your worth. And that's a big thing too, I think, for a lot of tutors. We come out of teaching where it's a very give atmosphere. Not that there's anything wrong with being a giver, but it was a lot of giving. And there is teacher guilt. It's something I talked with a couple other colleagues about this week. There's teacher's guilt, and you undercharge yourself because, hey, I make X amount as a teacher. I should make that much as a tutor. Oh, I'll charge a few dollars more. And then you kind of feel bad if you're charging more, but it's like, charge your worth, charge your value, charge for the value you're going to bring, the experience you're going to bring to these families. And again, make sure you're paying your tutors a fair wage, because they deserve it too. If they're going to be coming in and doing an amazing job for you, treat them well, treat them right with that.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I see Julia has been giggling with Odette in the corner of my screen as well.
She brought me food. I'm sitting here starving away. Michael, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
My absolute pleasure.
I wish I could ask you to come and join us in person tomorrow, maybe soon.
Oh, maybe there's a red-eye flight.
Yes.
Maybe.
That's the only downside with hybrid, is that
Yeah,
I can't get you guys over. Just yet, dare to dream.
Just yet.
So what we're going to do, guys, now is take a break, an actual break, because we've been grafting today. And Joanne Kaminsky is going to come here at 4:45. We're going to run one more lovely session with her. I've just been helping Hannah to prepare the thank you email for today. It's going to go out to all participants to sum up what we've been doing today, and to make sure that everybody has access to all the links and recordings and all those sensible things. But what really strikes me about what happened today was that we shared our journeys, and we found the overlaps, and we found the intersections, and we found the alignments. And I feel like now we're walking a path together, and that the rest of Love Tutoring Festival, we've spoken about celebration, and we're talking about being courageous. And I feel that there's a process of courageousness that Lauren and I are on at the moment, right? We're growing. There's a real sense of growing here. And so, Michael, I think your approach is really, really timely, and your insights are really, really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
My friends, I am clocking off. I am kicking you out, and I will see you in an hour's time. Bye.
Bye.